Tonight. Well, joining me now is John Williams, the Executive Director of the Rory Peck Trust, which provides support to journalists right around the world. He's also a former foreign editor of the BBC News and ABC News. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Isa.
Let me pick up with that report from Manada Bashir, because it really brings home just the challenges as well as the risks for so many of the journalists, and particularly in Gaza. Talk to that. Talk to what we have seen so far in 6 months in this war.
Well, I cannot believe that there is anywhere else in the world when a journalist loses their home, doesn't know where their next meal is coming from, doesn't know whether their children are going to get clean water, they still go to work. And I think the courage and commitment of the journalists in Gaza has been extraordinary. Today, the United Nations has awarded them the world's top Press Freedom Prize, and it is richly deserved.
And what people often forget is that they are fathers.
Absolutely.
They are mothers who are trying to keep their families safe and trying to cover this war for us. They are our eyes, our ears on the ground. And of course, we are incredibly grateful and in awe of their work. And the comments I often get on social media is, where are the rest of the journalists? Why are they not in Gaza? I wonder if you can explain that to us, because there has been a concerted effort by media organisations to get foreign journalists in, correct?
There's been a concerted effort by media organisations to get journalists in. There's been a concerted effort by the governments of Israel and Egypt
my question. So
to keep them out.
So what have we been hearing? Why are we not being allowed in by the governments of Israel and by the governments of Egypt?
Well, you would have to assume that there are things that they don't want us to see. Ostensibly, they say, and I'm going to do my report a bit here, that it's for the journalists' own safety, because clearly it's an active war zone. And we've seen many of those, only a handful of those journalists, 22 we think, were working when they were killed in Gaza. The others, they live in Gaza. So when a bomb falls from the sky, out of hours, they're killed. But it still means they are a journalist who has been killed in a conflict zone. And so it is undoubtedly a dangerous place for journalists to be. And the governments of Egypt and Israel say it's not safe for journalists to go. But I think journalists would rather make that decision for themselves.
Indeed. And compare that then, John, with the other wars that I know you've covered, Iraq, Afghanistan, the access and the way that journalists have been treated, the access they've been given, and the editorial as well.
There is something that does make Gaza unusual. It is a tiny strip of land.
Yeah.
And even back as far as 2009, after the first Operation Cast Lead, the very first of the wars that were fought in Gaza after the Israeli government pulled out of Gaza and left it to the Palestinian Authority. It was like walking back. There is a strip that connects you between Israel and Gaza, and it's like walking back over a century, where you go from the 21st century back to driving then horses and carts. And so 2 million people crammed into that small strip of land undoubtedly makes it incredibly dangerous for people to go in. But journalists are best equipped to actually make the decisions for themselves. News organisations are best equipped to make those decisions. And I think, even today on World Press Freedom Day, we would ask again that actually international reporters be allowed into Gaza, not least to give the journalists in Gaza some respite.
Absolutely, a break, and support, which they obviously need. And of course, we've talked about the conflict and the war in Israel and Gaza, but we cannot forget, John, the fact there are countless, I think it's record number of journalists have been imprisoned, right?
Second record, second highest number ever.
And I think it's truly shocking. Obviously, the most famous one is the Wall Street Journal journalists, but it also speaks, the second record, to the rise of autocracies that we are seeing. How do you see this in an election year where we will have more elections this year than any other moment? How do you frame this moment?
Well, we need to be clear that press freedom is everybody's freedom. Without press freedom, nobody has freedom. Freedom of expression is a reason why the founding fathers of the United States made it the First Amendment, because everything else flows from that. And when you don't have a free press, you have no freedom. And so Reporters Without Borders issued their Global Press Index today. And right around the world, press freedom is in decline, and we should all be concerned about that.
That's democracy in decline too, surely.
Absolutely. But in a sense, only a quarter of the world, only in Europe, do people have what is a good level of press freedom. The United Kingdom, 22nd in the world, just ahead of Jamaica. The United States, 55th in the world. You know, this is extraordinary figures for states that believe and talk the talk, but just don't walk the walk.
Indeed. And speaking of the United States, I can't have you here and not ask you about the protests, the protests we have seen across campuses in the United States. We've had a lot of young students giving us the very latest on the ground. How do you view and assess the way that these protests have been handled and the heavy-handedness, as one guest said earlier today?
I think what's fascinating, take Columbia Journalism School. Columbia Journalism School is at odds with Columbia University because they understand the home of the Pulitzer Prize. They understand that actually it's important to let their journalist students cover these protests. Protests and press go hand in hand. They are the two sides of the same coin. And it is vital that student journalists are able to go onto campus and cover the protests without the fear of the NYPD arresting them.
And I spoke to two students just yesterday who were arrested and they had their press credentials on them. Very concerning indeed. John, really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. Thank you. And John has written a piece for our website to mark World Press Freedom Day. Do have a read. The headline, I've seen too many young journalists to pay the ultimate price. It's them I'll be thinking of today. You can find it at cnn.com, as you can see there, /opinions.